Chapter 275. Great Divine Abilities and Lesser Divine Abilities. Suddenly, Lin Fei's physique began its metamorphosis. This marked the inception of becoming a martial sovereign. It was akin to a leap in one's life force. The golden core true person had to face the trial of heavenly thunder. In the midst of the thunder strikes, life was rejuvenated. At that moment, it was a transition, a leap in life itself. Yet, a martial sovereign did not require the trial of the heavenly thunder. However, the power nurtured within the life wheel was essential for the body's transformation. Swiftly, every aspect of Lin Fei's being, his muscles, flesh, bones, and even his skin, began undergoing this transformation. Moreover, this transformation was irreversible. It would endure for an extended period. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Lin Fei's transformation lasted an extensive duration. His life wheel absorbed vast amounts of spiritual chi daily, turning it into a mysterious force. Then, that force reshaped his physique. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Lin Fei's body resembled a cocoon. With a crisp snap, the cocoon abruptly broke open. Emerging from it, Lin Fei stepped out. With a soft swish, he opened his eyes. A streak of golden light seemed to flash across them. Simultaneously, he lifted his hand. Upon observing his arm, it was delicate and fair. Moreover, the very constitution of his muscles and veins had altered profoundly from before. Subtle hints of golden radiance emanated from him. At the same time, a novel power surged within Lin Fei's grasp. This power, birthed from the life wheel, had once been too immense for his former physique. Now, with his newly transformed body, he could effortlessly harness it. In that very instant, 2 figures appeared in Lin Fei's cavern abode. Sect Master, Wen Sovereign. These individuals were none other than the master of the ancient origin sect and the chief of the law enforcement hall, Wen Sovereign. Joy sparkled in the eyes of the sect master. 7 days, Elder Lin. Your transformation took a full week. Incredible, truly remarkable. What's significant about these 7 days? Lin Fei inquired, unaware of the importance of a week-long transformation. When Sovereign replied with a smile, the difference is immense. The longer the transformation, the more thorough the rejuvenation of one's body and the greater the life force expended. Of course, once the transformation is complete, your body will inevitably be more robust. It's an all-encompassing enhancement. This transformation prepares the body to bear the life power. This represents a holistic enhancement. The transformation of the flesh was, after all, to harness life power. The nature of life power thus determines the characteristics of your mortal vessel. Perhaps you're unfamiliar with life power. Life power is the novel force forged through your life wheel. This life power emerges slowly, crafted from the convergence of your chi, energy, and spirit. Its attributes and strength are intrinsically linked to your chi, energy, and spirit. Your lengthy transformation suggests the potency of your life power. Lin Fei grasped the concept. Life power dictated the metamorphosis of the flesh. The more potent the life power, the stronger the transformed flesh became. This life power was intrinsically connected to a martial artist's chi, energy, and spirit, also known as the 3 flowers. Life power. Lin Fei extended his hand and a strand of life power shimmered above his palm. This life power exuded a peculiar aura, glinting with a faint golden luminance. A thought struck Wen Sovereign. With a snap of his fingers, a strand of life power sped towards Lin Fei. Lin Fei responded in kind, and their life powers collided ferociously. It wasn't a world-shattering impact, nor was it an entanglement difficult to untwine. The 2 life powers merely grazed each other, and then in nothing. The strand of life power from Wen Sovereign vanished. Yes, simply vanished. It seemed to be entirely absorbed by Lin Fei's strand of life power. To put it another way, it was devoured. Lin Fei's life power clashed with that of Wen Sovereign and in an instant swallowed Wen Sovereign's life power. What is this? Wen Sovereign, the sect master, and even Lin Fei himself were utterly astonished. With a wave of his hand, the strand of life power seamlessly integrated back into Lin Fei's body, showing no signs of discordance. In fact, it felt slightly more robust. Devouring. Is the nature of your life power devouring? Wen Sovereign's eyes widened in disbelief, his emotions running wild. His gaze bore the weight of seeing the unimaginable. Every life power has its unique attributes. For example, the distinguishing feature of Wen Sovereign's life power was its explosiveness. Even a single wisp of life power bore immense might. In contrast, the sect master's life power was stability, profound stability. The sect master too unleashed a wisp of his life power. Similarly, Lin Fei manifested a strand of his life power. Once again, they clashed. And just like with Wen Sovereign, the result was the same. Lin Fei's life power devoured the sect master's life power. It truly devoured the life power. What sort of trait is this life power? The sect master was taken aback. Never had he heard of someone's life power possessing the characteristic of devouring. But upon closer introspection, Lin Fei had a theory. It wasn't really devouring, it was more akin to fusion. An all-encompassing embrace. Because Lin Fei's saber momentum had, in essence, integrated the strengths of countless styles. It was the confluence of numerous blade techniques, saber intent, and saber momentum. Only through such amalgamation could the saber momentum be perfected, culminating in the chi flower. Life power, too, was birthed from the foundation of saber momentum, saber essence, and more. Its hallmark was the fusion of all elements and all-embracing merger. Even Lin Fei's very flesh likely embraced this concept of universal integration. As for the specifics, further experimentation was necessary on Lin Fei's part. Moreover, simply devouring with life power didn't lead to direct cultivation enhancement. Upon reaching martial sovereign, progression wasn't solely reliant on life power. Lin Fei, do you know what a martial sovereign cultivates? It isn't just the cultivation of life power. It's the cultivation of divine ability. While a golden core true person has magic treasures, we, the martial sovereigns, possess divine abilities. In fact, only upon attaining the rank of martial sovereign can martial artists truly stand on par with immortal Dao cultivators. No longer fearing the spells and magic treasures of the golden core true persons. Our spells are every bit as potent as, if not superior to, those of the golden core true persons. Have you noticed the layers of radiant rings on our life wheel? Each luminous ring represents a divine ability. At the pinnacle of martial sovereign, one possesses 9 such rings, equating to 9 divine abilities. Of course, not all divine abilities are created equal. They are categorized into great divine abilities and lesser divine abilities. To journey further and ascend beyond the realm of martial sovereign, each of your divine abilities must be of the great category. Otherwise, cultivating even a single lesser divine ability might severely hinder one's chances of transcending the martial sovereign realm. There had also been people who had first cultivated lesser divine abilities and then advanced them to great divine abilities with their supreme talent. But that's too difficult. So, having just achieved the rank of martial sovereign, the most pressing matter is to cultivate a divine ability. As for whether you opt for a great divine ability or a lesser divine ability, that's a decision you'll have to make. However, typically, only those who find it genuinely challenging to master a great divine ability would choose to cultivate a lesser divine ability, aiming to enhance their combat capabilities. Divine ability can be self-comprehended or learned from others, essentially amounting to martial arts at the martial sovereign level. Generally speaking, a divine ability that one comprehends on their own tends to be highly compatible and potent. Learning a divine ability from another will always have certain inadequacies. But it's undoubtedly a quick way to cultivate a divine ability. Specifically, Elder Lin can weigh this for yourself. Both the sect master and Wind Sovereign were imparting Lin Fei with foundational knowledge on martial sovereign cultivation. This gave Lin Fei a very direct understanding of the cultivation process at the martial sovereign level. Chapter 276. Black Wind Prison. The sect master and Wind Sovereign had both left. Inside the cave dwelling, only Lin Fei remained. Now, Lin Fei truly stood as a martial sovereign. He possessed a newfound strength, life power. Furthermore, his physical form underwent yet another transformation. The cultivation of a martial sovereign required the practice of divine ability. This was an area Lin Fei had never ventured into before. In terms of creating his own divine ability, everyone knows that self-created divine abilities are superior. But without even understanding the fundamental principles of divine abilities, how can one create? Thus, Lin Fei honestly decided to visit the martial arts tower. Leaving his dwelling, he arrived at the martial arts tower. The elder of the tower, upon seeing Lin Fei, widened his eyes. He immediately stood up, reverently saying, "Greetings, Sovereign Lin." Clearly, the entire ancient origin sect was aware of Lin Fei's ascension to martial sovereign. Is the cultivation method for martial sovereigns available on the 4th floor? Yes, all martial arts at the martial sovereign level are on the 4th floor of the martial arts tower. Furthermore, there's a rule within the ancient origin sect. All martial sovereigns can freely view any martial art in the tower without spending any contribution points. The elder of the martial arts tower explained. In reality, this was a privilege. Even if one were a true disciple, a potential martial sovereign, or even an elder of the sect, they wouldn't have this privilege. Practicing martial arts typically requires contribution points. But it's different for martial sovereigns. A martial sovereign represented the pinnacle within the ancient origin sect. They were akin to the pillars supporting the heavens for the sect. The entire ancient origin sect relied on martial sovereigns for stability and protection. The only assistance the sect could offer to a martial sovereign was access to these martial arts. How could they not have such a privilege? Lin Fei nodded. Consequently, he directly ascended to the 4th floor of the martial arts tower. The 4th floor was empty. Aside from Lin Fei, there was no one else. Martial sovereigns in the entire ancient origin sect could be counted on one's fingers. Only a few existed. For centuries, Lin Fei was the first martial sovereign of the ancient origin sect. As for the other martial sovereigns, most of them had already almost mastered their martial arts. Basically, they wouldn't visit the martial arts tower anymore. Divine ability. Lin Fei didn't hastily start reviewing the divine abilities. Although he had listened to the sect master and Wind Sovereign's introduction, he still held many questions about the cultivation of a martial sovereign. For instance, what lies beyond the realm of martial sovereign? And why does the cultivation of a martial sovereign require divine ability? Only by understanding the principles of martial cultivation can one have a clearer vision of the martial Tao. Instead of blindly practicing divine ability without any comprehension. On the shelves, not everything was about martial arts. Indeed, there were some miscellaneous notes. For example, elaborations on cultivation philosophies or martial arts concepts. Lin Fei carefully picked one up for a closer look. It outlined some martial cultivation concepts, organizing them into a system and even contrasting it with the immortal cultivation system. For example, Qi cultivation progresses from Qi cultivator, foundation establishment, golden core to nascent soul. But what about the martial Tao? For Qi cultivators, it's equivalent to the innate realm. It progresses from innate, martial sate, martial sovereign, to martial king. Above martial sovereign lies the martial king. Martial sovereign signifies the pinnacle of the martial Tao, while martial king means the king of the martial Tao. Golden core cultivators need to step-by-step transform their golden cores into nascent souls. Upon reaching the nascent soul, they can gradually transcend the physical body. Even if the body perishes, the nascent soul can reincarnate, avoiding death. At this juncture, there's a clear divergence between immortal Tao and martial Tao. The martial Tao continuously strengthens the physical body. The body is fundamental. For instance, to attain martial sovereign, one must condense the energy flower. Transitioning from martial sovereign to martial king, one needs to integrate the 9 great divine abilities and merge them with the body. Harnessing the terrifying power of the 9 divine abilities to completely reshape the body. Once successful, every move of the martial king is infused with the force of divine abilities. Furthermore, being transformed by divine abilities, a special bloodline forms throughout the body. This is the martial king bloodline. If a martial king has descendants, these descendants could inherit 1 or even 2 divine abilities from the martial king bloodline. This is akin to being born with divine abilities, affording them a tremendous advantage from the outset. A martial king can have a lifespan of 10,000 years, matching the mighty nascent souls, becoming beings that can suppress the ages. If one could say, a martial sovereign might briefly shine and then vanish, with their family or power declining due to their disappearance, this is not the case for martial kings because they can leave behind a bloodline that contains the potency of divine abilities. The descendants of a martial king might awaken these divine abilities, hence possessing a natural advantage. Thus, the martial king bloodline can perpetuate, allowing the family of the martial king to continue and flourish, growing stronger with each generation. Third, Lin Fei closed the nights. He now had a clearer understanding of the principles of the martial Tao ahead. Starting from martial sovereign, there's a significant emphasis on the body. In fact, the ultimate goal of practicing martial divine abilities is to transform and upgrade the physical body. Whereas the nascent soul powerhouses in the immortal Tao aim to gradually transcend the physical body. They seem like 2 different paths, but in essence, they serve the same purpose: to prolong life, to live longer. The chosen paths are just different. From martial sovereign to martial king, the ultimate goal is to transform the body, Lin Fei pondered. It's essentially about using martial divine abilities to achieve this transformation. Sir, the requirements for the divine abilities must be extremely stringent. Lesser divine abilities may not successfully transform the body, meaning they can't help one achieve the martial king status. Only great divine abilities can achieve this transformation, giving rise to the martial king bloodline. Lin Fei's understanding grew clearer and he felt more confident about his path. He then shifted his attention back to the martial arts techniques and divine abilities on the bookshelf. This time, Lin Fei didn't wait for a martial art technique to voluntarily select him. He knew that when martial techniques are of the same level or even higher than oneself, they won't willingly follow one unless under very special circumstances. Having just achieved the rank of martial sovereign, what advantage did he possess to attract martial techniques to automatically follow him? He decided to pragmatically and carefully make a choice. Divine ability, Raging Sun. Once cast, it's like the scorching sun in the sky, suppressing all dark and evil powers. This divine ability was pure and dominant, capable of restraining dark and malevolent forces. It seemed promising, but its power was slightly lacking. It was merely a lesser divine ability. Combining Lin Fei's saber momentum with 3 martial saint-level saber techniques, he might already rival or even surpass the power of lesser divine abilities. As such, Lin Fei decided not to choose this particular lesser divine ability. Divine ability, Black Wind Prison. Once unleashed, it feels like plummeting into hell. It seals the 5 senses and directions become indistinguishable. The wind within is bone-eroding. When it blows, it decays flesh and turns it into white bones in the blink of an eye. Upon reading about this divine ability, Lin Fei was taken aback. Black Wind Prison was indeed terrifying. It was a true great divine ability. Not only was it adapted in prisoning, creating illusions and sealing, but its most fearsome attribute was the bone-eroding wind. Even peers of the martial sovereign rank could be eroded by this wind and reduced to mere bones. A truly invisible and deadly technique, it was a sinister and dreadful divine ability. Of course, there were also saber-related divine abilities. Lin Fei could follow a lineage, choosing only saber-related divine abilities. If he did, once he achieves the rank of martial king, the bloodline he would form would be centered around the saber. However, finding a saber-related great divine ability was not that simple. Another important consideration was that if Lin Fei exclusively practiced saber-related divine abilities, it would essentially narrow his martial Da. He aimed for a diverse approach, absorbing techniques from multiple sources rather than pursuing an extreme path. Only those with unyielding resolve like Shen Liangxin would choose such a singular direction. Then, I'll choose the Black Wind Prison divine ability for now. Lin Fei reached out and took this divine ability. But he didn't start cultivating it immediately. Instead, he spoke to the Black Wind Prison's divine ability manual. I wish to ascend to the pinnacle of the martial world. Black Wind Prison, are you willing to become my divine ability and lend me your strength? After asking, Lin Fei waited silently for any signs or responses. Chapter 277. Fusion Saber Momentum. Divine ability Black Wind Prison desires to be with a host who is ruthless, cunning, and has a propensity for bloodshed. Thus, divine ability Black Wind Prison refuses to be your martial technique. The system's voice echoed in Lin Fei's mind. Lin Fei remained silent. For the first time, he was rendered speechless. Not only was Black Wind Prison refusing him, but it was also essentially saying that it was looking down on him. It considered Lin Fei too kind. Who said martial techniques don't have a sense of good and evil? Lin Fei murmured, shaking his head. Black Wind Prison certainly had a peculiar personality. But was Lin Fei really that kind? Fire. With a mere thought, a tiny flame appeared on Lin Fei's fingertip. With a swift motion, he flicked the flame onto the Black Wind Prison manual. Instantly, the manual caught fire, burning vigorously. Wasn't Black Wind Prison claiming Lin Fei was too kind and not ruthless enough? Well, Lin Fei just showed it some ruthlessness. The manual for the Black Wind Prison was now on fire. Divine ability Black Wind Prison deems the host as ruthless and decisive. You are indeed the perfect choice for a host. Black Wind Prison wishes to voluntarily become your martial technique. Do you accept? A faint smile appeared on Lin Fei's face. Approved. With a wave of his hand, the flames on the Black Wind Prison manual were immediately extinguished. In reality, even if the Black Wind Prison manual was burned, Lin Fei wouldn't have been worried. He had glanced over it and had pretty much memorized the contents. If Black Wind Prison chose death over submission, Lin Fei would simply reproduce the manual. However, it appeared Lin Fei had overestimated Black Wind Prison's resolve. It actively sought to be Lin Fei's technique, and of course, he wouldn't refuse. This was a great divine ability after all, and indeed an impressive one at that. A booming sound resounded within Lin Fei's mind. Following that, a set of memories appeared. Within these memories, step by step, Lin Fei learned the divine ability Black Wind Prison. At least, he was now a beginner. System. Lin Fei immediately accessed the system interface. Host, Lin Fei. Martial level, early martial sovereign. Great divine ability, Black Wind Prison, beginner, progress 0%. Saber momentum, perfection, progress 0%. Seeing that Black Wind Prison had reached the beginner stage and become his martial technique, Lin Fei manifested his life wheel. Instantly, a black luminous ring appeared on his life wheel. This fast and obvious circle signified that Lin Fei now possessed a divine ability. However, Lin Fei realized that this was as far as he could go for now. To start practicing a second divine ability, he would first have to perfect the first one. Due to this restriction, many martial sovereigns progressed very slowly in their martial journeys. Many, even after decades or centuries, only mastered one divine ability. Lin Fei remembered observing Wind Sovereign's life wheel and noting that it bore only a single luminous circle. Despite centuries of practice, when Sovereign had managed to master just one divine ability. With such a pace, one's martial journey would essentially stagnate. Most martial sovereigns reached a point of contentment with just achieving the martial sovereign rank and enjoying a long lifespan. As for reaching the rank of martial king, that was an incredibly arduous endeavor. Throughout the entire history of the ancient origin sect, no one had ever reached that esteemed rank. Currently, I have no clues on how to advance Blackwind Prison, Lin Fei thought. Let's see how much progress I can make with daily diligent practice. However, there's potential for growth with Saber Momentum. Once it evolves into Saber Domain, my strength will transform from being abstract to tangible, making a significant leap. Even though Lin Fei didn't choose a saber-related divine ability, he didn't abandon the evolution of his Saber Momentum. Transforming it into a Saber Domain would bring about a metamorphosis in his strength. After some contemplation, Lin Fei decided to head to the 3rd floor of the martial arts tower. The entire martial arts tower was at Lin Fei's disposal, and the 3rd floor was no exception. Lin Fei arrived at the 3rd floor with the primary intention of selecting a saber technique. His Saber Momentum had already reached perfection, and to evolve it into the Saber Domain, he needed to continuously integrate various Saber Momentums to enhance its foundation until it ultimately transformed into the Saber Domain. Buzz. As soon as Lin Fei stepped onto the 3rd floor, he activated his Saber Momentum, enveloping the entire level. The martial saints present at the moment immediately bowed in respect and hastily left the 3rd floor. Now, Lin Fei was the only one left. I wish to evolve into Saber Domain. If anyone wishes to assist me in this evolution, manifest your Saber Momentum and integrate it with mine. Are there any saber techniques willing to lend me their strength? Lin Fei dangled the allure of Saber Domain, the transformation from abstract to tangible. He believed no martial saint-level saber technique could resist such a temptation. Buzz. As expected, various saber techniques began to resonate. Lin Fei promptly unlocked their seals. Yin Blood Saber has manifested the Saber Momentum and merged into your Saber Momentum. Unfeeling Saber has manifested the Saber Momentum and merged into your Saber Momentum. Supreme Desolation Saber has manifested the Saber Momentum and merged into your Saber Momentum. One after another, top-tier martial saber techniques, all manifested Saber Momentum, eagerly infused into Lin Fei's Saber Momentum, wishing to be integrated. Lin Fei welcomed them all without hesitation. As long as they could bolster his Saber Momentum's foundation, where would he reject any? However, as each Saber Momentum integrated, Lin Fei noticed a drastic decrease in the progress added to his cultivation. Now, integrating a martial saint-level Saber Momentum only contributed around 5% to his progress. In contrast, earlier, a single integration would boost his progress by 40%. Upon reaching the pinnacle of Saber Momentum, the efficiency had sharply diminished. In the entire ancient origin sect, there were only about 16 saber techniques capable of evolving Saber Momentum. Lin Fei had already practiced 3, leaving only 13 more for him to master. Now, these 13 saber techniques had all evolved their Saber Momentum, merging seamlessly into Lin Fei's own. Yet, it only added 65% to his cultivation progress. He still had a ways to go to reach 100% and evolve into Saber Domain. However, this progress instilled hope in Lin Fei. He estimated that if he could find 7 more martial blade techniques capable of evolving Saber Momentum, he would achieve the Saber Domain evolution. This alone set him apart and above countless martial sovereigns. Within the entire ancient origin sect, not a single martial sovereign had managed to evolve a domain. Now, Lin Fei's great divine ability was already at the beginner stage, and his path to Saber Domain had been illuminated. He just needed 7 more blade techniques. The ancient origin sect has no more top-tier saber techniques, Lin Fei mused. Where else can I find them? A thought flashed across his mind, Illusion Worry City. In Illusion Worry City, one could purchase anything if one had the necessary resources. Perhaps that he could find the 7 top-tier saber techniques he sought. However, martial sovereigns were not permitted inside Illusion Worry City. Moreover, Lin Fei's relationship with the city's leader, Worry-Free, was far from friendly. I should consult Wen Sovereign, thought Lin Fei. Without hesitation, he left the martial arts tower and flew towards the enforcement hall. Whether it was about top-tier saber techniques, Illusion Worry City, or the Worry-Free Sovereign, Lin Fei believed that Wen Sovereign would have some answers for him. Chapter 278. The Power of Black Wen Prison. Lin Fei arrived at the law enforcement hall and found Wen Sovereign. Sovereign Lin, shouldn't you be consolidating your cultivation and practicing your divine ability? Why have you come to see me? Wen Sovereign remarked with surprise upon seeing Lin Fei. It was commonly understood that new sovereigns would seclude themselves to train. Wen Sovereign himself had done just that, closing himself off for 3 whole years before mastering his first divine ability. Almost every martial sovereign became irresistibly engrossed in cultivating their divine abilities. Sovereign Lin, did you encounter difficulties in your divine ability training? He asked with a smile. If you have questions, you can always ask. Wen Sovereign held Lin Fei in high regard. After all, Lin Fei was the first martial sovereign the ancient Origin sect had produced in centuries. There was a chance that, in the future, his family might need Lin Fei's support. Lin Fei calmly replied, regarding my divine ability, I have mostly grasped it and haven't encountered many challenges. I came to ask about Illusion Worry City. I need top-tier martial saber techniques to augment my saber base, hoping to evolve into the saber domain. I've already explored the best techniques in the sect's martial arts tower, but they are insufficient. I need more top-tier martial level saber techniques. I wish to visit Illusion Worry City to see if I can obtain some, and that's why I wanted to consult you about the city. Wen Sovereign blinked in disbelief. You want to go to Illusion Worry City for top-tier martial saber techniques? Wait, rewind a bit. Did you just say you've already begun mastering your divine ability? Did you choose to cultivate the great divine ability or the lesser? His eyes widened and a hint of astonishment graced his features. It's a great divine ability called the Black Wen Prison. I presume you're familiar with it. Lin Fei inquired without any reservation. After all, it wasn't a secret. Black Wen Prison. That's indeed a great divine ability. And it's by no means weak among the great divine abilities. You've already cultivated it successfully in such a short time. Wen Sovereign had already been profoundly stunned when Lin Fei became a martial sovereign so quickly. But now, hearing that Lin Fei had mastered a great divine ability in just a few days. It took him 3 whole years for his first one. The stark contrast left Wen Sovereign somewhat at a loss for words. It's just the beginning. I haven't fully mastered it yet, Lin Fei remarked with a shake of his head. He had merely intimidated the Black Wen Prison once, demonstrating his ruthless determination, after which it willingly became his martial art. By Lin Fei's assessment, he was far from having mastered it. Lin Fei, let's spar, Wen Sovereign proposed, unable to contain his curiosity about Lin Fei's rapid cultivation of such a powerful divine ability, especially one of the great divine abilities. Lin Fei nodded. He too was eager to gauge the strength of other martial sovereigns' divine abilities. Both promptly exited the cave dwelling. Opting not to spar on the standard platforms, as a clash between 2 esteemed martial sovereigns, both implying divine abilities, could cause a massive commotion that might demolish the entire arena and potentially harm spectators, they soared directly into the void. And they kept ascending until they reached the clouds. Here, amidst the drifting white clouds, their activities would be hidden from prying eyes below. Although the high altitude exerted an intangible pressure on the physical body, both Lin Fei and Wen Sovereign, having undergone several bodily transformations, could withstand this force. Let's begin, Wen Sovereign declared. Sovereign Lin, my divine ability is called a mountain collapse, also a great divine ability. Be careful. Lin Fei nodded in understanding. This was merely a friendly spar, not a fight to the death. Both would exclusively display their divine abilities without resorting to other tactics. In the next moment, both simultaneously manifested their life wheels. A resonating hum filled the air. Behind Wind Sovereign, a massive life wheel emerged. On the life wheel, a halo of light circled, signifying the presence of a divine ability. Similarly, behind Lin Fei, another life wheel materialized, also surrounded by a radiant glow, representing yet another divine ability. The two colossal life wheels, suspended in the void, exuded an overwhelming aura. Both being martial sovereigns, neither was suppressed by the other's aura. Though Wind Sovereign had become a martial sovereign centuries before Lin Fei, he had cultivated only one divine ability so far. Upon reaching the martial sovereign level, it's not uncommon to experience little to no progress for decades or even centuries. When sovereign, my divine ability is called Black Wind Prison. Be prepared, Lin Fei warned. Both unleashed their divine abilities simultaneously with a resounding burn. When Sovereign's mountain collapse ability was overpowering, simulating the cataclysmic force of mountains crumbling and the ground splitting apart. The void itself trembled under its might, with thunderous bursts of energy echoing around. And adding to its potency, when Sovereign launched this ability with a single punch. This was no ordinary martial skill but a genuine divine ability, rivaling spells and magic treasures in strength. Black Wind Prison. With a mere thought, Lin Fei stretched out his finger, pointing directly at Wind Sovereign. The required life power was instantly mobilized to fuel the divine ability. The activation of a divine ability demands the support of life power, which naturally regenerates over time without the need for cultivation. But unless the adversaries are evenly matched and a war of attrition ensues, the amount of life power is not usually a deciding factor. Rarely are divine abilities equal in power. As Lin Fei executed his move, when Sovereign's world was enveloped in darkness. He could neither see nor hear, feel, or sense anything. His 5 senses were entirely sealed off. Swiftly, Lin Fei retreated. With Wind Sovereign's senses sealed, his mountain collapse divine ability went berserk, manifesting its true might. Even from a distance, Lin Fei felt as if he was on the verge of being completely crushed. He had to deploy his saber momentum for protection, evading the brunt of Wind Sovereign's attack. This escape was only possible because Lin Fei's Black Wind Prison had incapacitated Wind Sovereign's senses, leaving him momentarily unaware of his surroundings. Bone-eroding wind. Almost simultaneously, within Lin Fei's Black Wind Prison, the bone-eroding wind began to blow. A gentle gust of this wind passed by, and Wind Sovereign felt a jolt throughout his body. Following this, his reborn physique, which had undergone transformation and rebirth, began to dissolve swiftly, just like snow under sunlight. Even his life wheel behind him seemed to be affected by the bone-eroding wind, its luminescence dimming as if on the verge of disintegration. Stop! Sovereign Lin, halt immediately! When Sovereign shouted, urgency evident in his voice. With a wave of his hand, Lin Fei promptly dispersed the Black Wind Prison divine ability. Almost instantly, the world lit up before Wind Sovereign's eyes and his senses returned to their natural state. However, when he looked down at his body, his expression turned somber. Black Wind Prison, great divine ability Black Wind Prison, he muttered to himself. Sovereign Lin, this Black Wind Prison is more than just a great divine ability, Wind Sovereign said, a bitter smile crossing his face. Chapter 279. Egging. Lin Fei noticed Wind Sovereign's condition. The bone-eroding wind had only blown for a brief moment, estimated to be no longer than 3 breaths. Yet, the aftermath was severe. In such a short span of time, Wind Sovereign was pushed to the brink. The flesh on his body was eroded by the wind and turned into dust, even exposing his white bones. However, fortunately for him as a martial sovereign, he possessed life power. As long as the life wheel was intact, the martial sovereign would not perish. Even if his body looked terribly damaged, with the circulation of life power, the flesh that was eroded by the wind began to regrow at a visible pace. Though a martial sovereign is far from achieving the terrifying stage of regenerating from a drop of blood, injuries like these seemed minor. Soon, when sovereign was restored to its original state, on the surface, he looked unharmed. When sovereign, the mountain collapse divine ability practice is indeed potent, Lin Fei remarked, furrowing his brows. However, in hundreds of years, how have you only cultivated one divine ability? Moreover, while both are great divine abilities, my Black Wind Prison seems to be slightly stronger than your mountain collapse. Lin Fei had many questions. Being a martial sovereign for centuries without any improvement. When sovereign sighed deeply, in truth, I was overly ambitious. When I first became a martial sovereign, I was full of vigor, believing I could become the top martial king of the ancient origin sect. So, for my first divine ability, I chose a great divine ability, which was Mountain Collapse. This divine ability was incredibly challenging. I spent 3 years just to get started, and that was only the beginning. It took me a century to master it. But once mastered, it became almost impossible to advance further. Reaching transcendence was a luxury, let alone achieving perfection. As a martial sovereign, you must perfect your first divine ability before cultivating the second. Had I not been so ambitious and chosen a lesser divine ability, by now I might have cultivated 2, 3, or even more divine abilities. When Sovereign's tone was filled with regret. HM. Why didn't you mention how difficult it was to cultivate a great divine ability? Lin Fei stared at Wen Sovereign. It's a rule. Wen Sovereign responded. Every newly ascended martial sovereign in our ancient origin sect is not recommended any divine ability by the existing martial sovereigns, nor are they allowed to share their experiences. After all, the path of a martial artist is like rowing upstream, one must progress or regress. If one knows the challenges ahead, wouldn't it lead to despair? If everyone started practicing lesser divine abilities, it would be a dead end. Lin Fei understood now. Essentially, the ancient origin sect was worried that their newly promoted martial artists would lack ambition, all of them choosing to cultivate lesser divine abilities. Although these lesser divine abilities are easier, they are nowhere near as powerful as the great divine abilities. Thus, to promote ambition and challenge, they chose not to mention it and let the new martial sovereigns choose their divine ability paths themselves. Sovereign Lin, you needn't worry, Wen Sovereign advised. You are different from me. In just a few days, you can cultivate a great divine ability. In the future, there's a real possibility you might cultivate a second or even a third great divine ability. Your martial path still holds promise, it hasn't been severed. Among all the martial sovereigns in the ancient origin sect, only you still have an unbroken path. When Sovereign's tone was full of emotion, and when he looked at Lin Fei, there was a hint of envy. But your mountain collapse has reached mastery, Lin Fei pointed out. My Black Wind Prison has only just begun. Yet, you had almost no power to counter when we clashed. How is that possible? Lin Fei wasn't being polite. If anything, he was being quite respectful. During their recent duel, they merely exchanged divine abilities without employing other techniques. Lin Fei hadn't even utilized his saber momentum or his 3-in-1 technique, both of which were incredibly formidable. His strength in the past was enough to challenge a golden core true person. Now, they were undoubtedly even more powerful. Divine abilities vary greatly, Wen Sovereign explained. I've heard of Black Wind Prison. The demands of this divine ability are so high that its cultivation is incredibly challenging. Throughout the history of the ancient origin sect, with its many martial sovereigns, nearly none have managed to cultivate Black Wind Prison. And it's not just Black Wind Prison. Many divine abilities remain uncultivated. So, to truly know the might of a divine ability, one must engage in combat. Lin Fei then grasped the situation. Black Wind Prison was said to seal all 5 senses, rendering the opponent devoid of any sensation. It appeared to be a confinement-type divine ability. As for the bone-eroding wind, it was said to turn a person into bones instantly. Since no one in the ancient origin sect had managed to cultivate it, its true power was unknown. Now that Lin Fei had achieved it, even if only at the beginner level, its terrifying power was undeniably exceptional. Lin Fei, with your strength, coupled with your impressive saber momentum, when Sovereign suddenly suggested, perhaps you should try venturing into Illusion Worry City. Martial sovereigns are forbidden from entering Illusion Worry City, Lin Fei reminded him. Moreover, Illusion Worry City has 2 city masters. That worry-free sovereign is likely not easy to deal with. Indeed, Illusion Worry City does not permit martial sovereigns and those of the Golden Core level to enter, replied Wind Sovereign. But it depends on the individual. Worry-free sovereign only practices lesser divine abilities, but he has cultivated 3 of them. He's just a step away from the mid-phase of martial sovereign. And the Illusion Heart True person possesses a powerful magic treasure of the Golden Core level. This is why our 3 great forces give some face to Illusion Worry City. Their reputation was hard-earned by the 2 city masters themselves. Worry-free sovereign is only slightly stronger than me. After all, how can lesser divine abilities compare to great divine abilities? Even if he has 3 divine abilities, your Black Wind Prison is not just an ordinary great divine ability. Coupled with your saber momentum, you might not necessarily lose to Worry-Free Sovereign. If you defeat Worry-Free Sovereign, when Sovereign continued with determination, you can have anything you want from Illusion Worry City. Even if you lose, not only will the city master of Worry-Free not harm you, but he wouldn't dare to do anything either. Behind you stands the entire ancient origin sect. If Worry-Free Sovereign dares to kill you, our ancient origin sect could flatten Illusion Worry City in an instant. When Sovereign's turn was decisive and dominant. So, you're saying that Illusion Worry City can only take hits and can't strike back? That's right, when Sovereign admitted. It might be a bit stifling for Illusion Worry City, but that's the reality. The city itself jumbles between the 3 major forces, trying to survive the pressures from all sides. They are always walking on thin ice. Lin Fei came to an understanding. While Illusion Worry City seemed to be thriving and prominent in the eyes of the 3 major forces, it wasn't a big deal. The only reason they hadn't attacked the city was out of respect for the 2 city masters. It wasn't out of fear of them. Even if Worry-Free Sovereign seemed dominant in the past, he had to be. Without that dominance, Illusion Worry City would fall. Sovereign Lin, when Sovereign proposed, if you truly want those top-tier saber techniques within Illusion Worry City, I'll accompany you. If you defeat Worry-Free Sovereign, whatever saber technique you want, Illusion Worry City will surely provide. Lin Fei looked at the eager Wen Sovereign, noting the excitement in his eyes. It seemed as though Wen Sovereign was egging on Lin Fei, almost as if he was very keen for Lin Fei to visit Illusion Worry City. Or perhaps Wen Sovereign was looking forward to a showdown between Lin Fei and Worry-Free Sovereign.